That's right. Today we're going to talk about Garmin Connect and why I think it's broken. Well, hopefully not broken for long after Garmin sees this video. I hope. Okay, let's talk about it. Well, hey there, welcome back. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and today we're going to be talking about Garmin's. All the Garmin's, because they're all broken in the same way. Kinda. Today I want to talk about a feature on the Garmin Connect platform called Physio TrueUp, or TrueUp in general. And this is a feature that's been around for a while, and it's really useful, but it's got one glaring issue right now here in late 2022. And I'm hoping by making this video, the powers that be out there, maybe a developer at Garmin, somebody out there sees this and they fix it. That would be great. So let me back up and rewind time a little bit and explain why this became an issue for me and why I became very frustrated with it. For my use case, what I've been wearing for a while has been the Garmin Forerunner 955. This is an awesome watch. It's very lightweight. It's about $500, pretty affordable for what you're getting here. You got mapping and music storage and Garmin Connect IQ store and all the good stuff that comes along with a Garmin. But I digress. We're not here to talk about the features specific to these watches. We're here to talk about TrueUp and why it's kind of broken. So like I said, I've been wearing the Garmin Forerunner 955 ever since it came out, and it's become kind of my go-to watch. However, the other day I was doing something around the house. I was like working in the garage, cleaning things up, and I managed to whack the display of the Forerunner 955 and put a big old scratch on the glass. And I don't know if you can see it on camera here. I'm gonna try to angle it just the right way so you can see it. It's pretty subtle, but there is a big diagonal scratch right here in the top portion of the display. And I tell ya, scratches on displays drives me personally nuts. So what is a guide to do? Well, in my situation, I have a whole bunch of Garmin watches because of this YouTube channel. And so I decided I'm gonna start wearing the Garmin Epix Gen 2 because this has a sapphire display, which is much more durable than the Gorilla Glass display on this Forerunner 955. And here's where the magic happens in the Garmin platform. There is a feature called TrueUp, and it's for this specific use case. If you have multiple Garmin watches and you want to wear one on a certain day and one on another day, and you want all your data to be in one place. So in my situation, what TrueUp did is it took all of my wellness data and all of my activity history and everything, it syncs it up to the cloud and allows for my Garmin Epix Gen 2 to retrieve that data and display it in an exact duplicate way. However, the issue that I've run into is that Garmin TrueUp only works for certain metrics. It doesn't work for all of the metrics that are collected by these watches, and I find that incredibly frustrating, and I'm gonna explain why right now. So here's the Garmin Forerunner 955 that I've been wearing as my daily driver watch for the past several months, from everything for all of my activities and running, for sleeping with, for just collecting my daily wellness. Everything has been collected by this watch in particular. And if I scroll down, you can see there's a whole bunch of data that's also synced over to Garmin Connect. I've got my estimated VO2 max on the top here. If I scroll down, I've got my training status. I've got my HRV status. I've got my training readiness here. And if I dive into training readiness, there's even more information. I've got my sleep. I've got my recovery time, my HRV status again, my training load or acute load, my sleep history, my stress history. Also, if I scroll even further down, I've got body battery here, and then I've got my calories burned, I've got my calendar events and things like that, my step count, my heart rate, etc. So there's a whole bunch of information that's stored in here. So what I did is I took my Garmin Epix Gen 2, I've had this watch for a while, but for the purpose of this video, I went ahead and did a factory reset on this watch. I wiped it out completely as if it were a new watch. And I went ahead and I paired the Epix Gen 2 with my iPhone 14 Pro, and I wanted to see what data would be pulled over to the Epix Gen 2 from the Forerunner 955. And the way TrueUp works is kind of interesting. When you pair a new watch with Garmin Connect, it's going to ask you if you want to use that watch as your primary activity tracker. So you can see here, I've got my list of devices that are all paired with Garmin Connect. But if I dive into my Garmin Forerunner 955 here, and then I scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can see that I have preferred activity tracker checked here. But I could just as easily go back and select the Epix Gen 2 as my primary activity tracker by clicking this button here, set as preferred activity tracker. By setting a preferred activity tracker within the Garmin Connect app, you're going to tell Garmin that's where you want the brunt of your wellness and fitness data to come from. So if I set my Forerunner 955 as my primary activity tracker, and some days I use the Epix Gen 2, but some days I wear the Forerunner 955, it's going to prioritize the data coming from the Forerunner 955 because I have it set as the primary activity tracker. That all makes sense. Getting back to the point of this video though, let's get back to the Garmin Epix Gen 2. Like I said, I did a full factory reset on this watch. I connected it with Garmin Connect and I did a full sync and made sure everything processed in the background. It's been several hours now, so it should be all set up and I should have all of my data. If I scroll down from the watch face, you can see that I do have most of my data. For instance, I do have my estimated VO2 max here. And if I scroll down again, I do have my training status, and it is the exact same training status as I saw on the Garmin Forerunner 955. And if I dive further into the training status and scroll down, you're gonna see I do have my training load here. So there's my training load from the past several days. I've got my load focus, which is available, my estimated VO2 max. However, if we get down to HRV status, you can see that there's no data available. We'll circle back to HRV status in a second, but we'll scroll down again. And here we do have the recovery advisor, which did sync over from the Forerunner 955. Dropping down again to training readiness, you can see again, there's no data available. Scrolling down again, we are missing body battery data. It's there, but it's some weird number that doesn't represent my body battery for today. It says plus 14, but there's no number associated with that. So I'm gonna say that it did not sync over from the 955. And scrolling down one more time, again, no sleep data. So the sleep data from my Forerunner 955 from my last night of sleep did not sync over to the Epix Gen 2. So for the purpose of this video, I went ahead and I reformatted a bunch of my watches and I did a whole bunch of testing by syncing and unsyncing and disconnecting and forgetting the Bluetooth and repairing the whole process all over again with multiple watches. I tried it with the Epix Gen 2, I tried it with the Garmin Venu SQ2, I tried it with the Garmin Fenix 7 and a few other watches, and I've come to a conclusion, I think. So what syncs? What actually works when it comes to Physio TrueUp? Well, things like the VO2 max estimation do sync reliably, the training status does sync reliably, the training load, the recovery advisor, the step count, your calories burned, and floors climbed all work pretty reliably. On top of all that data, also your activity history, all of your runs and rides and things like that will sync over between the watches, which is great. So those are all the things that do sync pretty reliably. Now let's talk about what doesn't sync. The first thing is body battery. Like I said, in all of my testing, I cannot get body battery to sync between multiple devices. It just doesn't seem to work. Body battery isn't a huge deal though, because if you wear the watch for 24 hours, you go to sleep with it, you wake up with it, it's gonna pick up where it left off pretty reliably. So you should be able to get back in action and start using body battery again within a day or two. Not a big deal. The next thing that does not sync is going to be training readiness. And training readiness takes a little bit longer to establish a baseline. So you're not gonna get a training readiness score for 3 days after you start wearing a new watch. And again, 3 days is not a huge deal, but it is kind of annoying if you plan on swapping watches often. It is something to keep in mind. Now let's get to the big one. HRV data. HRV, the heart rate variability status. This is a new feature that came out a few months ago on a bunch of these watches. The problem with HRV status is that it takes 3 weeks of wearing the watch every day to establish a baseline to start getting HRV status feedback. 3 weeks is a considerable amount of time. That's a long time before you start getting your HRV status again, and it can be a huge gap in between data points if you're trying to, see your trends over time. And for me personally, that's where I run into a big roadblock between these two watches. Now on the Garmin Epix Gen 2, I need to start fresh, wear this watch every day for 3 weeks, and then I'll get my HRV status, which is super annoying. Like, why is all of the other data, like your step count and your stairs climbed and calories burned, but certain things don't sync over? It just seems like a huge oversight, and I really hope this is something that Garmin is working on in the background. In fact, I would be happy to make myself look like an idiot and have them fix this tomorrow. That'll probably happen, and then this video will look bad, but at the time of filming this is a huge issue with the Garmin Connect platform if you're using multiple devices. You might be sitting there wondering, why do we need multiple Garmin watches? Why don't you just have a single watch? Why do we even need this feature? But there are a few practical reasons why this feature exists, and I think it'll become even more important in the future with more generations and more devices as they become available. For example, if you're somebody who has an office job, or you're somebody who has a job where you don't want to have a big clunky watch on your wrist, but you are an active person, you might want to pick up a watch like the Garmin Venu SQ2 here and wear that as your daily driver. However, if you're that same person, but on weekends, you go out and hike the Appalachian Trail, or you're an ultra marathon runner, or you're somebody who, wants to climb a mountain, I don't know. There's a lot of activities out there that would warrant the use of something like this Garmin Tactic 7 or Garmin Fenix 7X, or just generally a larger, more flashy, more expensive watch. That's the beauty of TrueUp in the Garmin platform. You can wear the Garmin Venu SQ2 as your daily driver and collect your step count and your sleep data and your daily wellness metrics and all that stuff. And then on weekends, when you're ready for your adventure, you could turn on your Tactic 7 or Fenix 7, throw that on your wrist, get all the same data that you've collected all week from the SQ2 on the larger watch, and take that on your big adventure. But until Garmin can fix this Physio TrueUp feature and start syncing all of these metrics across, like sleep data, training readiness, HRV status, all that stuff, I find this to be a flawed system. And honestly, it's driving me kind of crazy right now. So Garmin, if you're listening, please fix this. Anyways, this is kind of a weird rant video. I didn't mean to just complain the whole time. I kind of did. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below. And also, drop it in the comments section down below and let me know if you've run into this issue with your Garmin's. Do you have multiple watches? Do you even care about multiple watches? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And finally, if you're planning on picking up a Garmin Epix Gen 2 or a Tactic 7 or any watch that I've shown off in this video, check out the links in the description down below because those do help support my channel and they cost nothing extra to use, so you might as well use them. And with that, I think I'm done here. I'm gonna stop complaining now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.